Welcome to the Newsa-Cast YouTube channel. These Red Smith Banquet throwbacks are exclusive interviews of sports legends, powerful media personalities, and influential coaches. You won't find these anywhere else. Subscribe below and enjoy. Alrighty, Tosh, it is that time again, once again, for a Red Smith Banquet throwback. The original idea for this podcast was to release these segments, and we love it, Tosh. We get to look back, and we're going to go back to 1994 at the Paper Valley Hotel. That was a great banquet. We had Ernie Harwell, the legendary Detroit Tiger speaker, and then we honored Bob Harlan, who, and of course, 1994, the Packers were primed to make their run to the Super Bowl, but we had a Neenah native receive the Red Smith Award, and the Red Smith Award goes to somebody that's contributed to sports locally in the state of Wisconsin, and there is nobody that's more deserving than who we gave it to that year, and that's Jill Lieber. And I know you're going to say, who's Jill Lieber? Well, she is an absolutely incredible sports journalist. Wrote for Sports Illustrated for years. Broke, of all things, the Pete Rose gambling scandal because of her. You know, that led Major League Baseball to begin the investigation. And think whatever you want of Pete Rose, he obviously gambled on something, you know, right or wrong, whether he should be in the Hall of Fame. Jill Lieber is the one that did that investigative journalism, and that was pretty insane. And she's a Neenah High School valedictorian. Yeah,
she was. In fact, she's a 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner. For Sports Illustrated as well. I mean, I saw something in Sports Illustrated Vaults, and she kind of talks about not being super proud to say she was from a small town in nowhere, Wisconsin, but comes to realize how much she really appreciated it. But her ties go all the way back to the late 1800s, and her great-grandfather, William Brown, was a carpenter and built the columns that still stand in front of Main Hall at Lawrence University.
How cool is that, Ty?
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I mean, if you get a chance, you can just find that at vault.si.com, and you can kind of get a little information about Jill. And again, stories from people in the Fox Valley that you really don't know about. Here's a chance for you to get to know her.
Absolutely. Somehow I think that's a little Houdini magic, Tosh, that got sprinkled into that story. So anyway, folks, enjoy Jill Lieber from Neenah, Wisconsin, an absolute epic sports journalist. Enjoy.
At this time, we're going to ask Judge Bob Cannon to come up and present the major award, the Red Smith Award, to Jill Lieber. Bob?
Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very happy to have had the opportunity of once again appearing on this program and participating in this great presentation. Looking at the speaker's table here and seeing my old friend Ernie Harwell of more than 30 years, I like to think of the wonderful things that he's done for baseball, and I believe you me when I tell you this, he's the greatest sportscaster in the history of baseball. Ernie, thanks a lot for the memories. In the 15 or 16 years that I've been making these presentations, we've only had the opportunity of presenting the Red Smith Award on 2 different occasions, or one previous occasion, to a lady. And tonight we have a young lady who is the second recipient of the Red Smith Award. She's a native of Neenah, Wisconsin. She was a valedictorian of the Neenah High School, and had she run for prom queen, I'm sure she'd have been elected prom queen that year. She's a lovely young lady and is a credit to the journalistic field and the sports field here in America. Jill has authored the investigational reports for the Pete Rose scandal, which subsequently caused the banishment from baseball. The great baseball star, Pete Rose, who violated the rules of baseball and through Jill's investigative reports and her authorization of her articles. It caused the banishment of Pete Rose from baseball for life. She also authored investigative reports on a fellow by the name of George Steinbrenner of the New York Yankees, which caused his banishment for a couple of years. And Jill, I'm damn glad that you're out of Wisconsin. I'm damn glad that you're out of Wisconsin. You're not investigating judges. She's covered 15 Super Bowls, which is pretty good. And when you think of it, you know, we always say a native son. And in this situation, she's a native daughter of Neenah and of the state of Wisconsin. She's a credit to the journalistic field, a credit to her family, a credit to the state of Wisconsin, and a credit to everybody who has ever been associated with her. And so tonight I'm very honored and privileged, Jill, to present to you the Red Smith Award, if we can find it up here. Jill, this is the 1994 Red Smith Sports Award presented to Jill Lieber for your outstanding contribution to sports journalism. Good luck.
First of all, I think I should clear a few things up. I don't want to get blamed for all these things. Number one, I'm not in charge of the swimsuit issue, so I cannot get you a date with the woman on the cover. You wouldn't want to go out with her anyway because she's too skinny. The other thing, I had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that we didn't run anything on the Rose Bowl this year. But I can give you a phone number and a fax and an address if you want to write to New York or phone the managing editor. You do. The other thing is, I don't think I would have wanted to be prom queen even if somebody would have nominated me. But I'll let you in on a little secret. I was a cheerleader. But for volleyball and wrestling, the runner-up girls. And finally, I didn't have anything to do with banishing George Steinbrenner. I helped bring him back. But what you can blame me for is the Tony Mandarich cover. And Bob Harlan is the nicest guy because he's still my friend after that. I have to admit that when I received a letter this summer informing me that I'd received this award, I was very surprised. And when I scanned all the list of the past winners, I was overwhelmed. I actually went back and reread the letter, handed it to my husband, and said, "This can't be. Every year they send me a press release. This is just a press release, isn't it?" And he said, you're winning this award. And I thought it was pretty interesting because I'm not an athlete, I'm not a coach, I'm not an Olympian, and I've never donated money to build buildings for speed skating rinks or hockey teams or basketball teams. In fact, it was pretty exciting to me because the only other woman who's won it was Jane Pettit, and she and her husband won it together, so I'm actually the only woman to get it on her own. And then I started thinking about the past year in Wisconsin and all the people who could have actually gotten this award. And I thought, you know, I didn't lead the Badgers to their first Rose Bowl victory in 30-some years. I didn't lead the Green Bay Packers to their second straight winning season, you know, back to the glory days of Lombardi. I didn't sign the biggest marquee name free agent in pro football, nor did I line up and pull the Packer defense up from the cellar to one of the best overall defenses in the NFL. I didn't split my time between running the Milwaukee Brewers and being the interim commissioner of Major League Baseball. And I didn't rebound from an emotional exit after years with the Brewers to become a World Series champion, a World Series hero for the champion Toronto Blue Jays. And I guess I should stop now, or you're going to take this lovely award back and wonder why you're giving it to me. But it's too late because it's already engraved. What you've chosen to honor me for is the power of the pen. For 15 years of hard work at all levels of writing, newspapers, magazines, and books, and for being a pioneer of sorts as one of the first and still few women in sports writing. To be totally honest, this hasn't been an easy career path. There have been and still are plenty of roadblocks. And quite frankly, if a young woman were to come up to me tonight and ask about going into sports writing, I'd probably dissuade her. To me, the business world is tough enough for women, but to jump into a field that's so male-dominated is and probably always will be very treacherous. But I'm very lucky because I've always had great love, support, and encouragement from my husband, family, and friends. I grew up a Packer fan, going to games at Lambeau Field with my father. When I was in 8th grade, he and I were watching the Packers on TV one Sunday afternoon, and the CBS pregame show, The NFL Today, with Brent Musburger, Irv Cross, Jimmy the Greek, and Phyllis George came on. And my dad said, "That's what you ought to do. You ought to become a female sportscaster like Phyllis George." Well, back then, sitting in my family room in Neenah, Wisconsin, a goal like that seemed pretty unreachable. And when I found out that Phyllis George had also been a Miss America, I figured it was pretty impossible. But not having the title of beauty queen on my resume was minor compared to the obstacles, the true obstacles that I've faced. In 1978, when I began my career as a writer at the Milwaukee Sentinel, I wasn't given a beat because as a woman, I couldn't be assured of locker room access. So I was put in charge of Your Sports, a participatory sports page, and I wrote about subjects like mommy and baby exercise classes, snowshoeing, and nature centers. In 1979, the Brewers were forced to open their locker room in part because of me. And that first night, with all the snide remarks, it was such a horrifying experience that I had to actually go into George Bamberger's office and sit down and put my head between my knees to keep from fainting. One year when I was working at the Sentinel, I was sexually assaulted during an interview with a brewer who will remain nameless. Years later, in the summer of 1989, during an investigation of Pete Rose, I had to go toe-to-toe with the slugger on Easter weekend and remind him that under no uncertain terms should he continue to call me honey. And he replied, "All right, honey." In the summer of 1990, Fay Vincent, who was then the commissioner of baseball, tried to have me fired after I'd launched my own investigation into their investigation of George Steinbrenner and exposed its one-sidedness. And a couple of years ago, I didn't make many friends with my beloved Packers after my cover story on Tony Mandarich entitled "The NFL's Biggest Bust." I've been yelled at, screamed at, cursed at, pushed around locker rooms, bashed in the head by TV cameras, called a number of derogatory words, and was probably subjected to sexual harassment before Anita Hill brought it to the national attention. But I have refused to let those things stop me. I was not about to be distracted or deterred from my mission. Instead, I used the hardships to make me mentally tough, to give me confidence and more determination. Above all else, the obstacles have made me even more passionate for my job and make me feel that if I can't succeed, then no woman can. All I've ever tried to do is approach journalism and my job the way I'd like to be treated, with a clear mind, no preconceived notions, with fairness and decency, and above all else, honesty. A couple of years ago, I co-authored a book with former 49er defensive back Ronnie Lott. It was an incredible experience to be able to gain the trust and get inside the world of a remarkable football player. I saw the NFL in ways I'd never seen it before. One of the most vivid was after a rugged Monday night football game against the Giants, when he had badly sprained both knees. I was present at his house when he was receiving a massage. He went in for a lot of sort of offbeat alternative medical forms to get up for games and get ready for the next game. And his knees were so badly sprained that they actually emanated heat. The two most important lessons that have stuck in my mind from being with Ronnie are of stories of competition and respect. When Ronnie was at USC, he competed against his best friend, who was another defensive back named Dennis Smith, who plays for the Denver Broncos. And one day, one of his coaches pulled him aside and said, "Ronnie, who do you think O.J. Simpson competed against?" He said, "Nobody. He was the best." And he said, "That's the point. If you are always competing against Dennis Smith, then you're only going to be better than Dennis Smith. You're not going to be the best that you can be." And I have tried to keep that with me the last couple of years because I've always been so concerned about what the other women are doing or what the other men are doing, because I've probably been very sort of conditioned to the competition because it is such a pressure-packed career. But the second words of wisdom that he really taught me a lot about and the meaning about was the word of respect. It's almost a mantra to him. He used to say that it's not about money, it's not about Pro Bowls, it's not about Super Bowls, it's not about the Hall of Fame, that when people come to your funeral, they come to pay their respects. And this is what I strive for and will continue to strive for, to be respected, both inside and outside the sports and journalism fraternities. To be respected as a writer, not as a woman writer or a sports writer, but to be respected as a writer. And I really cherish this award because I really believe that you people have not forgotten about me as I have not forgotten about you and where I come from, and that this is a great mark of respect that you're showing me. Thank you.
Great.
Please subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we post another great episode or interview. Download the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for your support.
Imagination. What sparks it in a child? A story? A song? Heroes or deeds? One thing is certain. For less than $1 a day, cable inspires children with some of the most original programs on television. And who can put a price on that? Cablevision. Look at all the things we are.